Tell me I ain't got son, nigga, mama virgin. Back in the ghetto doing wild shit. Looking at the sun, don't pay. Tripping on mine all the time, wait for judgment day. They say Moses split the Red Sea. I split the blunt, roll the fat when I'm deadly. Babylon, beware, coming for the Pharaoh's kids. Retaliation, making legends off the shit we did. Still bullshit, niggas in Jerusalem, waiting for signs. God coming, she just taking the time. Living by the now while the water flows. I'm contemplating plots, wonder where the thought of gold. Brothers getting shot, coming back, resurrected. Is this that raw shit, nigga? Check it. And I remember what my papa told me. Remember what my papa told me. Blasphemy.
Not for them I steal in the name of the Lord. Them I tell no cry. How them I burn in the cloud. Using the name of the Lord in vain while the people in the ghetto will not change.
The preacher want me blurry wise. I know he a liar. Have you ever seen a crackhead? That's eternal fire. Why you got these kids' minds thinking that they evil while the preacher being wicked? You say honor God's people, should we cry when the Pope die? My request, we should cry if they cry when we bury my X. Mama, tell me, am I wrong? Is God just another cop waiting to beat my ass if I don't go pop? Memories of a past time, giving up cash to the leaders, knowing damn well they ain't gonna feed us. In my brain, how can you explain time and BC? It's hard enough to live now in these times of grief. They say Jesus is a kind man, but you should understand times in this crime land. My third nation, do what you gotta do, but know you gotta change. Try to find a way to make it out the game. I leave this and hope God can see my heart is pure. Is heaven just another door? I leave this here. I leave this and hope God see my heart is pure. Is heaven just another door? And my people say,
not for them I still in the name of the Lord. Them I tell no fly, but all them I burn in a cloud. Using the name of the Lord in vain while the people in the ghetto them feel no pain. Not for them I still in the name of the Lord. Them I tell no fly, but all them I burn in a cloud. Using the name of the Lord in vain while the people in the ghetto feel no pain. Not for them I still in the name of the Lord. Them I tell no fly, but all them I burn in a cloud. Using the name of the Lord in vain while the people in the ghetto feel no pain. Not for them I still in the name of the Lord. Them I tell no fly, all them I burn in a cloud. Using the name of the Lord in vain while the people in the ghetto feel no pain.
God has a plan, and the Bible unfolds that wonderful plan through the message of prophecy. God sent Jesus into this world to be our Savior, and that Christ is returning someday soon to unfold the wonderful plan of eternity for my life and your life. How does we cooperate with God by accepting Jesus Christ as our personal Lord and Savior? As the Lord does return in the coming 7 days, we'll see you next time. I will come.
that's better. I remember what my pops told me. The new word, follow me. Remember what pops told me. My family tree consists of drug dealers, thugs, and killers. Struggling, known to hustle, screaming, fuck they feelings. I got advice from my father. All he told me was this: nigga, get off your ass if you plan to be rich. There's 10 rules to the game, but I share what you do. No, niggas gon' hate you for whatever you do. Now rule 1, get your cash on MOB. That's money over bitches cause they breed envy. Now rule 2 is a hard one. Watch for phonies. Keep your enemies close, nigga. Watch your homies. It seemed a little unimportant when he told me I smiled. Picture jewels being handed to an innocent child. I never knew in my lifetime I lived by these rules. Initiated as an outlaw, studying rules. Now Papa ain't around, so I gotta recall or come to grips with being written on my enemies' walls. Promise if I have a seed, I'm a God and right. Dear Lord, don't let me die tonight. I got words from my comrades, listen and learn. Ain't nothing free, give back what you earn. No gap, getting high in the motherfucker, bless me, please. This thug life will be the death of me. Come on. Now remember what my papa told me. Remember what my papa told me. Blasphemy.
Not for them I still in the name of the Lord. Them I tell no fly, how them I burn in a cloud. In the name of the Lord, they bring while the people in the ghetto feel no
we probably in hell already. Our dumb asses not knowing everybody kissing ass and go to heaven ain't go and put my soul on it. I'm fighting devil niggas daily, plus the media be crucifying brothers severe. Tell me I ain't God, son. Nigga, mama virgin. We got addicted, had to leave the birds. Back in the ghetto doing wild shit. Looking at the sun, don't pay. Criminal mind all the time, wait for judgment day. They say Moses split the Red Sea. I split the blunt, roll the fat when I'm deadly. Babylon, beware, coming for the Pharaoh's kids. Retaliation, making legends off the shit we did. Still bullshit niggas in Jerusalem, waiting for signs. God coming, she just taking the time. Living by the now while the water flows. I'm contemplating plots, wonder where the thought of gold. Brothers getting shot, coming back, resurrected. Is this that raw shit, nigga? Check it. And I remember what my papa told me. Remember what my papa told me. Blasphemy.
Enough for them are still in the name of the Lord. Them are still no fly, how them are buried in the cloud. In the name of the Lord in vain, while the people in the ghetto feel no pain.
The preacher won't be buried wise. I know he a liar. Have you ever seen a crackhead? That's eternal fire. Why you got these kids' minds thinking that they evil while the preacher is wicked? You say honor God's people, should we cry when the Pope die? My request, we should cry if they cry when we bury Malcolm X. Mama, tell me, am I wrong? Is God just another cop waiting to beat my ass if I don't go pop? Memories of a past time, giving up cash to the leaders, knowing damn well they ain't gon' feed us. In my brain, how can you explain time? It's hard enough to live now in these times of grief. They say Jesus is a kind man. We should understand times in this crime land. My third nation, do what you gotta do, but know you gotta change. Try to find a way to make it out the game. I leave this and hope God can see my heart is pure. Is heaven just another door? I leave this here. I leave this and hope God see my heart is pure. Is heaven just another door? And my people say,
enough for them are still in the name of the Lord. Them are still no fly, but all them are burning a cloud. Using the name of the Lord in vain, while the people in the ghetto them feel no pain. Enough for them are still in the name of the Lord. Them are still no fly, but all them are burning a cloud. Using the name of the Lord in vain, while the people in the ghetto feel no pain. Enough for them are still in the name of the Lord. Them are still no fly, but all them are burning a cloud. Using the name of the Lord in vain, while the people in the ghetto feel no pain. Enough for them are still in the name of the Lord. Them are still no fly, all them are burning a cloud. Using the name of the Lord in vain, while the people in the ghetto feel no pain.
Mark was trying to tell everything.
God has a plan, and the Bible unfolds that wonderful plan.
But Pop, last album, his whole album, he was talking about the knowledge, the mathematics, the illumination, right? And you know, people still trying to wonder what happened. If you just pay attention, everything that man was saying was facts. That's why they took him out. Because his whole album was directed towards the industry. His whole album. You know they weren't about to let that man get off with it. Your whole album, it was directed towards the industry. He was talking about everybody. To an innocent child. Like an outlaw studying rules. So I gotta recall on my enemy's walls. Please don't let me die tonight. Listen to the line. No doubt. Be the death for me. I remember what my papa told me. Blasphemy. I remember what my pops told me. But I guess that's why he changed his name to Makaveli and stopped Tupac, right? Which means they didn't want you to know the two sides of Pac. It was two sides he was trying to portray. The loving side, then the Makaveli side. That's why his name was called Tupac. It means you, peace, peace, you. Or give peace. Peace, peace. That's what two mean, right? Peace, peace. Two, we hold up 2 fingers in the air, say peace sign. Really, that's the two. But you still got other five. You still got five more principles to add to that, which makes it seven. It makes you a God. So that was it. It was in his name. But a lot of people didn't understand what they call Hebrew, or break it down parts of speeches. A lot of people probably didn't catch that part, right? Because there's certain parts that people is looking over and not comprehending. You can't skip over a part to get to the next part. You're gonna be lost somewhere in the part. So it was in Park's name. In Park's name, he was saying peace, peace. But he switched it on his last album. He didn't call his album Tupac. He called it Makaveli, which is a whole nother person. So Tupac was trying to show you the two selves according to what the Quran was speaking about. I got to go back and really listen to the album and actually listen to all the words he was saying in the album. I'm pretty sure he said something about two selves in that album. I probably missed it. But that's the part of studying and, doing research. These albums are not being put out. These people are not saying these things for no reason. And man's whole album was directed toward the industry. Like X was saying, right? It's the industry. There's some people in this industry, it's evil. It's corrupt. There's a lot of evil, corrupt people in this industry. Pop was specifically pointing that out in his album. All the songs on his last album was specifically talking about the industry. That's why that man is considered as a legend, like he said. In my book, anyway. He's really the only person that actually was blunt about it. Everybody else trying to beat around the bush, trying to give certain messages and subliminal codes. But Pac was the only one who actually was blunt about what was going on in the industry. All that punk shit that was going on in the industry. Punking niggas for fortune and fame, right? Blackmailing niggas, extorting niggas. That's really going on right now. And who was he talking about in his last album, man? Now they finally end up getting the person that they was talking about. He was talking about in his album. So people still not understanding what's going on. It's Ticketmasters. Raffling tickets. He was the only one around that time that was putting out that information in a way anybody could understand what was going on in the industry between him and a few other people. And then that's when everybody else started to talk about the industry after that, after they start seeing what happened to Pac, and they start experiencing the same like symptoms, right? Cause look at Mobb Deep, Prodigy. Hell, you could go and listen to Nas' latest album. He's now coming out and speaking about who he actually took his style from. And I ain't hear Pac now one time in that album. Everybody knew you was biting from Raekwon. Everybody knew that. But Pac was the only person at that time that was blunt about what was going on in the industry. That's why they unallowed that man. It reduced him to no return. He even changed his name just so you could see it was two cells. He said Makaveli. It wasn't Tupac no more. It wasn't Peace no more. It's Makaveli. Illuminati. Then now everybody else want to come out and start talking about the industry. But then when Pac was here, wasn't nobody on Pac's side listening to Pac, realizing what Pac was talking about. Or excuse me, Makaveli, because you know you can't mess up the man's name. Excuse me, I mean Makaveli, because that's what he was under an alias called Makaveli. So if you ask me, the man might still be living. Y'all might think he might come back as Tupac, but really he gonna come back as Makaveli. Because that was his last album that he was promoting was the name Makaveli. All his albums, they got Tupac. But on his last album, his name changed. So I'm pretty sure don't nobody know who he is right now. I probably ain't never heard his last album. Or probably just not getting hip to his last album. Because now they just finding out his name Makaveli. So you think that the guy that's running around here talking about he's Tupac don't know that Tupac is not Pac no more? He's Makaveli? If you was Tupac, you would have knew that. So how can you be Pac? If you don't know that your name now is Makaveli, it's not Tupac no more. But you wouldn't know that because you're not Pac. You got people being misled, you leading people astray by saying you Pac. If you Pac, nigga, let me hear you say Ain't that what he said? If you Master P, nigga, let me hear you say Ain't no motherfucking Pac. Everybody know that ain't Tupac, nigga. Tupac ain't gonna come back with his same name, Tupac, nigga. That's crazy. If you was Pac, you knew you changed your name to Makaveli because of what you was hearing in the streets. Your whole last album was talking about the industry. And now all of a sudden you resurrected back as the same person, Tupac. No, you left this earth as Makaveli. That was your last album. So that's what people know you as, Makaveli. I don't know you as Tupac. Because your last album that you left on this earth was called Makaveli. That's your past self. That's your old self, Tupac. Your new self is Makaveli. You would know that though, if you was Pac. You see the difference. Nigga don't even look like Pac. They got other motherfuckers around them talking about Biggie and all this. They don't even look like them niggas. What this is, a circus? Like, what's really going on? Like, y'all have to imitate others just to get likes and shares and fortune and fame? Like, that's weird. That man was unalive because he was acting like somebody else. Y'all not seeing it? That is not that man's name. That was somebody else's man. That was a European name. That man literally was unalive because he was using another man's name. Literally. And people don't see it like that. They talking about East Coast, West Coast wars. You know, which is another war to help initiate or propagate whatever they was trying to. So the East Coast, West Coast war is like any other war to promote and advertise for ticket masters and sales. But you would knew that if you was Pac, you would knew that. You would know that. But you're not. You're Makaveli. So if you not screaming Makaveli and screaming your last album to promote your last album, you're not Pac. You're Makaveli. But you would knew that though, right? You would know that, right? Everybody running around here talking about that's Pac, but don't know that Pac changed his name before he left. Y'all wouldn't know that though, cause you don't listen to his album. You don't study his album. You think that ain't his album. You think that might be the worst album he ever did. But really, that's the best album he ever did. That's the rawest, hardest album he ever did. He said it. But you wouldn't know that because you don't listen to Pac. You listen to Miley Cyrus. So Pac was the only person that was exposed in the industry around that time frame. Right? Which was his alter ego. That's all it was. It was his super ego. Let me say that, not alter. It was his super ego. Which he started to realize because I'm pretty sure he picked up the book, the Holy Circle Quran, the Circle 7 Quran. Now I don't know if he did, I'm just assuming, but if you listen to the album, right? Makaveli, the dawn, the spiritual, lyrical, some shit like the Holy Quran. Right? So I don't know if he was talking about the Quran with the Q or the Quran with the K. But if you look at his album cover and how he spelled Illuminati with a K, that makes me think, was he reading Prophet Nubu Ali works? And that's another reason why they unalive him. Because he was reading the information that they didn't want him to know about. They want him to keep fighting for the black movement, right? So they could keep this narrative up about black people, about how black people are lazy and gluttonous, because that's what Christians are. And all black people are considered Christians. And then it's Muslims. And black people are considered the worst people on the planet. They liars, they're evil, they stink, they're dirty. Black people now. So it made me think about, was he really, which one was he reading? The one with the K or the one with the Q? And I'm thinking this album cover, Illuminati. See, we could just go study his album cover, because that's what a lot of us is not doing. We're not studying. We may be studying books, but we're not studying covers, the comforter that you want to lay on when you go to lay down for sleep. The cover. You study hard enough about what cover you want to put on your bed, what cover you want to see on your bed. So that's all we doing with these covers. When I get to the cover, I'm gonna show you. That's what we do with these covers. Let me get to the cover. I want you to see the whole cover. There. You see the cover? They say the Dawn, Illuminati. Now most people, they be like, man, that don't mean nothing that you're saying. Yeah, because you're not thinking the way I am. That's why it don't mean anything to you, but to me, it means a lot. Because I'm studying the album. I'm listening to the album. I'm looking at the cover, which a lot of information is on the cover and in the album. When you get that CD, when you go buy that album, and it be in that case, and you take that piece of paper out of it, and you can read all the songs, the people who made the songs, on the songs, the beat maker, everything. You even might have a little bit of extra information on the back when you flip towards the back, right? Because that's what we used to do. We used to go by the albums and we used to listen to it and remember all the songs by heart, especially the hits, right? So I think we forgetting that we used to do these things with no effort. So now we get older and we don't continue to do the things that we was kids anymore, right? Because we adults, right? It's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So that's what makes me think that he was reading the Circle 7 Quran and not the Quran with a Q. Because of how he spelt Illuminati. And then also explaining about the 7-day theory. Ain't that the 7th circle of Quran? Ain't that the 7 God? Ain't that the God, nation of gods on earth? God body, the 5% nation, 6% nation, Islam. And he was speaking about how he was an outlaw. And it's a Bible. And it's a book right now called the Outlaw Bible. Hold on. I don't, because most people think I be making this shit up. All I do is just listen. I listen to the music. Some people wasn't able to listen to music, They couldn't listen to that type of music in their household. Well, unfortunately, I wasn't one of those kids. So I could listen to all the music I want. I think that's why we got a big gap in between a lot of people. Because certain people haven't seen certain shit, wasn't allowed to see certain shit. They was restricted from watching BET, MTV, shit like that. So they never seen anything. So now a lot of people is so interested in what they're seeing because they never seen it. It's like when you was a kid, you used to do all the things as a kid. Then when you get older, that shit boring to you now. That's how some of it is. That's how I am. I used to get drunk. How I used to go to the club when I was a kid, when I was a younger. Now I'm old. I'm like, man, that shit. I did that shit when I was a child. I ain't in no childlike state no more. I'm older now, right? But he was clearly talking about how he was an outlaw. He named his group the Outlaws. And then his last album is talking about Makaveli, Illuminati, 7-day theory, with a picture of Jesus Christ like image on a cross. And his whole album, he was talking about the industry. And then once you do the history, the research on Pac and realize all the shit that he was saying in his interviews, who he really was, he was one of the people. He was speaking out about what was going on, these nefarious acts that was going on in the minority communities. Matter of fact, all his albums is speaking about what's going on in the inner cities. But his last album was specifically talking about the industry. What he said, I'm coming for you, Babylon, beware. But that's the importance of our daily routine, the daily things that we do, right? To keep us going, to keep the wheel flowing. But he wouldn't know that because he's not Pac. If he was Pac, he would know that he's not Pac anymore. He's Makaveli. Just the simple fact that his last album that was put out is not Tupac anywhere on the album. He doesn't say Tupac anywhere in the album. So that lets you know that he was not under the name Tupac. He was not operating as Tupac. He was operating under the alias as Makaveli. But you wouldn't know that because you're not Pac. Even on the cover, it says Macaw versus Eli. Y'all thought that V meant something different. That's verse. Macaw versus Eli, which is Makaveli. He was clearly telling you he got two cells. But you wouldn't know that though, cause you're not Pac. So all that's over and done with, right? You know, it didn't take hard to realize the lies and the truth. It is what it is. I'm just saying, B. That's my favorite artist. It's one of my favorite artists. I feel like I'm Pac, nigga, and you telling me you running around here talking about you Pac? Ain't no way, buddy. Ain't no way. If you was Pac, you'd be promoting your last album like I'm doing for you. Because that's the last thing you was working on before you left. So that means that you got videos you need to make, right? You got more movies you need to make, documentaries probably now. And we in a new age, so now you can be able to make documentaries about what you was thinking about during the time of this album. You know, little simple shit like that. But you're not doing that. You on live on TikTok talking about you Pac. Nigga, cut it out, bro. Cut it out. Look, I want to go get your picture and clip you up. Man, it's not Makaveli, man. It's not, man. Why you still ain't out here working? You supposed to be making videos and shit, buddy. About your last album. Matter of fact, it's supposed to be a Makaveli 2. With a Makaveli 2 it? You just start making music now? How you come back at Tupac and you don't make no fucking music? Man, cut this shit out, man. I'm going to something new. I'm done talking about this shit. Because the more I talk about it, the more it sounds slow. Ain't no damn way, buddy. So that's why I go back to, the supreme mathematics. Understanding the mathematics, the supreme, this supremacy, right? Anybody know the supremacy clause? We talk about white supremacy, black supremacy, but anybody know what supremacy means? Anybody watch that movie with Danny Glover in it, Supremacy? Because this is what Pac was really trying to explain. The mathematics, the science to everything. How we are gods. That's why he was saying kill all that noise. I remember what my pops told me. But you wouldn't know that because you don't study. You don't study more. Maybe you need to study a little more. Cause the man clearly named his camp Outlaws. Who does shit like that, right? Just come up with the name Outlaw. Oh yeah, we gonna be called the Outlaws. Like, for one nigga, where the hell you get that shit from? That's what that. Give a damn. Outlaws. Where you get that from? I'm not finna accept something. Oh yeah, we the Outlaws, man. Oh, okay. Nah, nigga, where you get that from? Where you get that from, Pop? Makaveli. Where you get that from? Right? Just the common sense shit and things, right? But a lot of people won't understand that. How long this book been out? See, that shit that you can go and Google. How long this book been out? When Pac dropped his last album? When Pac created the group Outlaws? If you telling me this book wasn't out around the time he was doing all that, there's something wrong. So he had to been reading these books that we're now reading. They had to been reading these same books then that a lot of people are reading now. Don't nobody talk about it in this manner, in this light. They ain't gonna give you movies, videos, books, artists, right? They're not gonna give you, an arsenal where you can actually go and study these things. They're just gonna be like, oh yeah, you heard that last album by Tupac? They ain't even gonna say his fucking name. You could be like, man, you heard that last album Tupac had dropped? Man, that's disrespectful. That man's name Makaveli. Y'all not even acknowledging the man by his name. The name that he want to be called. He want to be called Makaveli. So call him by that. That's his name, Makaveli. It's like Ali's name was Muhammad Ali. But we looking at what Pac was saying like it wasn't lyrical. Like it wasn't spiritual. Everything he was doing was coming from the heart. That's why he named himself Tupac. Because Tupac means peace. Peace. God. When a person cannot know how a court will apply a settled principle to a recurring factual situation, that person cannot know the scope of his constitutional protection, nor can a policeman know the scope of his authority. You see that? That's why we ask, where's your delegated authority order? Where you get your authority from? Where you get your power from? It comes from the people. It's vested and derived from the people. So if we don't know that, then they could usurp our sovereignty, our immunity, our power, and say that we don't have any rights. All we have is privileges which are given to us, which classify us as a outlaw. This is the outlaw's Bible. Everybody out here reading the Bible, but are they really reading the Bible? I got another Bible, right? Where that Bible at? I probably left that Bible at the crib. In my pop's crib. It's called that. The Second Amendment Bible. Yeah, I probably left that one at the crib. I don't know why I be leaving certain books and shit around. I might have that Bible here. I think I had took that one out because I was on some other shit. Oh no, I still got it. Yeah, it's right here. By Makaveli, the Second Amendment Bible. And let's talk about your Second Amendment rights. How they've been trying to take your Second Amendment rights, make you believe you don't have any rights. That's exactly what this book talk about. Give me a second. I'm gonna show you in a minute. I'm grabbing a couple books to read to you. You know, I usually start off with a devotion, a daily devotion. Because without those, you know, sometimes we could become lost in the sauce. So it's best to read daily. I try to read every day. Sometimes I might read all day. It just depends on how I'm feeling in that day. Like today, I feel like, you know, just speaking about what's written in these books, right? You know, just analyzing, reading, right? Studying the word, trying to interpret the word to help someone better understand the word, right? Because we all was lost and had to be found at one point in time, right? But I just want to show you, you know, the books that started me on this journey, on this path of knowledge, right? It's called the Second Amendment Bible by Makaveli. It's a good read. Got a few cases in there, you know. It's a short book. It's not long. It's not a long book, you know. It's a real good book, though. Copyright in 2021, so this ain't nothing. Back in the day, got DVDs, websites, you know, sources, shit like that. Matter of fact, this is the first book. It's like, I think it's like one more book, because they actually teach you how to do certain things, right? That's why it's called the Second Amendment. Could soon be destroyed. Here's how to protect yourself. Right, 2020 was a record-breaking year for gun sales in America. Not only were there 23 million new guns sold, there were 8.4 million people who bought a gun for the very first time. Many of whom have said they would never own a gun. Why would millions of Americans who never dreamed of owning a gun suddenly buy one? Peaceful protests, violent riots, and looting, business being burnt down. And it give you the sources right there, right? Everybody love the sources. But let's further read what's going on. Inner cities, because that's what's really going on in the inner cities, being forcibly occupied, and a record number of cities voting to defend the police, while the left publicly declares that everyone has the right to feel safe. They continue to pass laws that create the exact opposite. And despite so many people buying guns to protect themselves, the Biden administration had publicly declared war on gun ownership. Right? Within days of being sworn to office, he announced sweeping gun control efforts. And both he and Vice President Kamala Harris has said only they'll do it with or without congressional support. And here go the sources for that. Fox News, Forbes, WhiteHouse.gov. You know, yes, our vice president and attorney has gone on record to say that she will exercise unconstitutional power to strip from the Constitution anything they don't like about it. I guess when you an attorney, things like the law don't really matter. And based on her career as a prosecutor, it's clear that for Harris, the only thing that really matters is winning at all costs. In fact, in a recent analysis of the current proposal the Biden administration has issued on gun control, it was discovered that 105 million Americans will instantly become criminals. Now let's establish something up front. The real reason that governments want gun control, right? But down here in my state, they said that license to carry guns is unconstitutional. Now it's constitutional carry, which means that we don't need a license to bear arms, right? I got that paperwork somewhere too. Matter of fact, let me go get that shit. You know, what's the point of reading all this shit if one not going what the hell I'm talking about? I usually keep that shit somewhere tucked, just in case, you know, I might have to show one that what we doing down here in the cat is legit. See, that thing South Carolina. They say that thing South Carolina is a slow state. Like we probably one of the fastest states, growing states in America. But they ain't gonna tell you though. Because they narrative about a certain group of people. You see that right there? South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. Constitutional carry guidance. What it say? This law is in effect immediately. It allows individuals 18 years old and older to carry firearms openly or concealed without a permit. As signed by the governor on March 7, 2024, authorizes individuals who are not otherwise prohibited from possessing a firearm to legally possess a firearm openly or concealed without training and without a concealed weapons permit issued by SLED. But if you from the Carolinas and you don't know nothing about this, it's because the people is gatekeeping. They don't want you to know. They want you to stay a servant, a victim to the system, right? So now let's go back to the Second Amendment of the Bible, right? Because they go to sources, the real reason the government want gun control, right? But you already know, I just showed you South Carolina, it's not going with this whole narrative of gun control, right? So anytime gun control is mentioned by a politician or the mainstream media, it has nothing to do with saving lives. It has nothing to do with making people feel safe. It has nothing to do with stopping gun violence, right? It may sound good. It may sound reasonable. It may even sound like common sense. After all, nobody wants bad guys to have guns, right? It's a lie. You know they be lying, right? What it's really about is right in front of you, gun control. It's all about control. Honest, deceit, non-violent people must fight against gun control. This is in the Second Amendment Bible now, by Caleb Lee. The Second Amendment Bible. Right? It say the Second Amendment is vital to the long-term freedom and liberty of the United States. And on the next few pages, you will learn why the right to keep and bear arms is truly fundamental individual right, a right that must be protected. The irony behind the current arguments for gun control is that disarmed people are neither free nor safe. Not only does gun control not work, criminals still get guns while good, honest people are left defenseless. Right? Even worse, when the civilians are defenseless, the odds of their government veering into extreme corruption is high, which is what's going on right now. As a result, as has been proven over and over, thousands and even millions of innocent people suffer and die. Professor R.J. Rumel, author of the monumental book Death of Government, said concentrated political power is the most dangerous thing on earth. The only way for power to concentrate and become dangerous is for the citizens to be disarmed. Right? This ain't no old book now. Let me show you. This book was copyrighted in 2021 by Makaveli. See, look, first printing, May 2021. Printed in the United States. You could call them right there, screenshot that, take a picture, write it down, I don't give a fuck. Right? But if I didn't show you that book, would you ever know anything about this book? If I didn't show you? See, that's what be going on. People be gatekeeping about where they get this information. What disarms the citizen, the idea of gun control, is the idea that only the government has the right to possess its firearms, and that citizens have no unalienable right to use force to defend against aggression. They really make us believe that. You know, through the media, the mediums, the media, at the end of the day, words and how you use them matter, which I keep saying. Calab Lee's saying it. This is a European. So this is not no more science, no more in the science temple saying anything about your words. This is not the Bible, the Holy Scriptures saying anything about your deceitful words. This is the Second Amendment Bible. It's saying about the deceitful words. Right? So that's how you know God works in mysterious ways. For example, gun control advocates routinely point out that there are 40,000 deaths from gun violence every single year. First, there is no such thing as gun violence. Let's remember that. There is just violence. Then there is violence when people use guns as the tool, which is the device to our demise. The term gun violence is a made-up buzzword that politicians use as a propaganda to demonize guns in America. When was the last time you heard a politician or a news reporter say knife violence or first fist violence? The only reason they put the two words together, gun with violence, is to push an agenda that guns are inherently bad. Second, 40,000 makes it seem like the U.S. is still the Wild West with shootouts on the street corner every single day. Now you see the words, the Wild West. That's why I say the Wildcats. See, I was a wildcat after I built my castle. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, then it's on you to get it. But I've been built my castle. You could go to the house right now. You go to the heights right now and you'll see how I built my castle. However, upon closer inspection, you'll discover the actual deadly violence, i.e. murder, is only around 10,000 per year. On the rest are suicide or accident. 10,000 actual homicides is less than the number of people who been unalive falling downstairs each year. Yes, stairs unalive more people than homicides do. To put it into the ATF estimates America's only 434 million guns, including over 20 million AR-15s and 150 million high-capacity magazines. If guns were truly the problem, then you would expect to see that reducement far higher than that. When 75% of all gun reducement are either accidental or self-inflicted, you cannot argue in good faith that gun violence is a problem in America. And there goes some sources right there. Ellison Jury Law and guns.com/news. All right, I ain't gonna read all of it. I'm gonna read some of it. It's saying, and just to show you how twisted and deceptive the mainstream media has made it, when you look at total violence in America, it's actually far lower than most European countries, most of which ban guns outright. USA has lower violent crime rates than the average industrialized countries. That's not a typo. Despite the poor image USA has for its gun violence, statistics, it is not an outlier when it comes to crimes in general. According to the famous International Crime Victim Survey, the average violent crime rate for 15 industrialized nations is 6.3%, while the rate of the U.S. is 5.5%. Gun control laws do not deter crime. Gun ownership does. A study in applied economics letters found that assault weapons bans did not significantly affect murder rates at the state level. And states with restrictions on the carrying of concealed weapons had higher gun-related murders. While gun ownership doubled in the 20th century, the murder rate decreased. John R. Lott, Jr., PhD, author of More Guns, Less Crime. Instead, understanding crime and gun control laws stated states where the largest increases in gun ownership also have the largest drop in violent crimes. The effect on shall issue concealed gun laws on these crimes where 2 or more people were unalive has been dramatic. When states pass these laws, the number of multiple victim shootings declined by 84%. Reducement from these shootings plummet on the average by 90% and injuries by 82%. Then give you the sources to go to actually look up a lot of this information. The statistics, the stats, right? I ain't gonna read all this. I'm gonna read some journalist John Stossel explained criminals don't obey the law. Without the fear of retaliation from victims, we might pack and heat criminals in possession of these illegal weapons not have a much easier job. As the saying goes, if guns are outlawed, which I was just showing you down at the bottom, outlaw Bible. So they trying to outlaw our rights, which is us. They outlawing us and taking away our rights. That's what outlaw really means. That's why Pac was saying outlaws. That's why he created the group Outlaws. Only outlaws will have guns. And despite Chicago's ban on gun shops, shooting ranges, assault weapons, and high-capacity magazines, in 2014, Chicago had 289 shooting victims, including at least 390 reducements. More gun control is unnecessary because relatively few people are unalive by guns. Right? Like I said, I ain't gonna read all this, but I'm just trying to get to the beef. The truth about government. Here's the truth. The federal government is set on getting universal gun registration schemes passed. They're desperate to create an exact list of each and every gun in the hands of us law-abiding folks. So let me show you what I was just showing you earlier, right? Because regardless of what they do, all states are federal and foreign to the federal government, right? A lot of people don't know that. That's what makes us independent. We all foreign to each other. So the federal government is considered foreign to the states. But they make us believe otherwise, right? But in my state, we don't need a concealed weapon permit issued by SLED to conceal a weapon. We don't need any training. And this was passed March 7, 2024. So it differentiates in your state. Depends on the state you live in and the constitutional laws. But every state has its own constitution and every state has a Second Amendment. So whatever they saying is propaganda. The federal government is set on getting universal gun restrictions schemes passed. They're desperate to create an exact list of each and every gun in the hands of us law-abiding folks. Right? They go to source right there. Just look at the source. Go to the source. Right? I'm just trying to get to the meat and potatoes. So give me a second. Give me a second. Say chapter 1, that was the introduction. We wouldn't even get into the chapter. That was the introduction. You see how much meat and potatoes we got to the introduction? That's why I say I wasn't going to read all of it. Chapter 1, the history of the Second Amendment and how it protects your rights, right? Because we need to know the history of these things and how everything became about. If we don't know the history, then we doomed to repeat it. Chapter 1, the history of the Second Amendment and how it protects your rights. The Second Amendment, often referred to as the right to bear arms, is one of the 10 amendments that form the Bill of Rights. Not the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. That's different. That's why a lot of the things that we are saying is not enforceable. It's not forcible because the Constitution itself is different according to our rights on the bill. So we have to exercise our Bill of Rights, which give us our rights, privileges, and immunities, which come from the Constitution, which is the amendments of the Constitution, because you got 7 articles of the Constitution as well. So the Second Amendment is rooted in multiple sources: English law, America's revolutionary experience, and contemporary European political thought, which I was explaining yesterday. A lot of this stuff is intertwined because of how they was presenting, certain facts and evidence over the centuries. So, the laws that they brought over here was a lot of the Roman laws. But you wouldn't know that though, right? Because you don't read more. In short, the basic idea was the people have a right to defend themselves against tyranny, and that if a government breaches the social contract with its people, the people have a right to overthrow the government. Popular access to arms is the sine qua non of each of such an ideal. They go to source right there, history.com, topics, United States Constitution, Second Amendment. They go to source right there. I ain't making none of this up. I'm just reading and becoming aware of my surroundings. What they call keep your head on the swivel. Don't get mad at me because a lot of people don't want to read this information. How you come to America and you don't want to learn English. That's just fancy legal speaking meaning. Absolute, essential, right? What I just said right there. The government popular access to arms is the sine qua non of such an ideal. That's just a fancy legal speaking meaning, absolute, essential. This argument lies at the heart of the Declaration of Independence, which I was saying last night. When the colonies overthrew the rule of the King of Great Britain, so in a sense, every American celebrates this idea every year on July 4th. Every nigga out here be popping fireworks on that day, like we was part of the revolution, the independence. Not how they tell us in school. We were still on the farms. It's hard to imagine the generation that launched the American Revolution doing so without embracing the ideas in the Second Amendment. One of the ancient rights that the Charter of England in 1688 enumerated was the right to keep and bear arms, a fact cited by the U.S. Supreme Court in a key ruling on the Second Amendment in 2008. What the Second Amendment actually says, and more importantly, what it means. The text of the Second Amendment reads in full, a well-regulated militia, being necessary for the security of the state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms and shall not be infringed. The framers of the Bill of Rights adopted the wording of the amendment from nearly identical clauses in some of the original 13 state constitutions. During the Revolutionary War era, militia referred to groups of men who banded together to protect their communities, towns, colonies, and eventually states. Once the United States declared its independence from Great Britain in 1776, what else happened in 1776? Many people in America at that time believed governments used soldiers to oppress the people and thought the federal government should only be allowed to raise armies with full-time paid soldiers. When facing foreign adversaries, for all other purposes, they believed it should turn to part-time militias or ordinary civilians using their own weapons. What's the deal with state militias, right? Militias had proved insufficient against the British. As a result, the Constitutional Convention gave the new federal government the power to establish a standing army even in peacetime. But people don't act like they don't know what POC means. However, opponents of a strong central government known as anti-federalists argued that this federal army deprived states of their ability to defend themselves against oppression. They feared that Congress might abuse its constitutional power of organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia by failing to keep militiamen equipped with adequate arms. So shortly thereafter, the U.S. Constitution was officially ratified. James Madison proposed the Second Amendment as a way to empower these state militias. While the Second Amendment did not answer the broader anti-federalist concern that the federal government had too much power, it did establish the principle held by both federalists and their opponents, that the government did not have the authority to disarm citizens. Right? Let's go see the case law. In the past, this has been upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court in several landmark decisions, including Washington, D.C. versus Haler, in which a law enforcement officer sued for the right to keep a gun in his house while off duty. The court affirmed the idea that the Second Amendment protects the right of individuals' private gun ownership for self-defense purposes. You see that case law right there, Washington, D.C. versus Haler. Says that we got the right to bear arms because an officer sued the state about his private weapon at home. Right? 2 years later, in McDonald versus Chicago, the Supreme Court struck down a similar citywide handgun ban, ruling that the Second Amendment applies to the state as well as to the federal government. So they can't strip our right to bear arms. They can't enforce no statute, no code, whatever, saying that we need a requirement to bear arms because that's our Second Amendment right. Now they depriving all rights according to the Bill of Rights and the Constitution that they solemnly swear to uphold. So that's treason. But we don't look at it like that because we're told that they have the authority to do what the hell they want to do to us. And the majority ruling in the case, Justice Samuel Alito wrote, Alito's way, self-defense is a basic right recognized by many legal systems from ancient times to the present day. And in Haler, we had that individual self-defense is the central component of the Second Amendment right. All right, I ain't gonna read no more after that. That was a lot of information right there in itself, along with the sources I gave you, and even the book to even go and source what I gave you. Khalid, how you say that? Caleb Lee, the Second Amendment Bible. Go pick that up at Amazon at your local store. It's a good read. It's not a thick book. It's a real short book. It's not that thick. You see, not that thick. Real short book. Go check that out. It should be at Amazon for a couple dollars. But according to my state, right, went through with it without a concealed weapons permit. Anybody in my state that's above the age of majority and that doesn't have any prohibited convictions from possessing a firearm to legally possess a firearm openly or concealed without training, without a concealed weapons permit issued by SLED. See the period right there? That's where the authority at the period. This is March 7, 2024. Constitutional carry guidance to chief, sheriffs, and law enforcement officers. So they already got this information. They already know. It's just that the public is not aware of this information. They don't know. So you might want to check in your state thoroughly about your gun laws, your gun rights. But they ain't gonna show you this shit right here though if you're in the Carolinas. If you don't know that and you in the Carolinas, that's how you know it's a lot of gatekeeping going on. And you know, I'm putting on for my city. So that means I'm gonna let you know the law that's going on. A lot of people don't know that because they don't read enough. I guess I'm just the only one read. You know, a motherfucker that tell you need to stop reading so much. That's the person you need to watch out for. How you gonna just tell somebody to stop reading? Do you stop reading? Then you can't tell nobody else to stop reading. $10:20. I was just trying to find a date. The 25th. So we're going straight to the Bible, right? Because with all that, one still ain't gonna have the faith and believe that they got the right to bear arms. So we go straight to the Bible on this one, right? What it is, May. It's May 25th. So that's what we turn into. This is daily devotion. A little God time for kids. 365 daily devotion. A little God time remind you how special you are, just in case you forgot, right? Because sometimes we forget. But we got what it is, a lizard, an elephant, might be an iguana. Joyful waiting. That's the title. I wait for the Lord. My whole being waits. And in his word I put my hope. Psalm 135. Waiting for something can be very hard and not fun at all. But sometimes waiting is exciting. Waiting to tell something great, for a family vacation. Waiting to give someone a gift. When we wait for good things, the waiting can be a gift too. This is how it is to wait for the Lord. We will eventually be with God forever, and waiting for that to happen is fun. Lord, I love waiting for you because I know you bring only goodness. I can wait for you with hope. All right. I wait for the Lord, my whole being waits, and in his word I put my hope. You heard what he say? What he say? And in his word I put my hope. Now what Caleb Lee said about the words and the usage of words about gun violence. There's no such thing as gun violence, it's only violence. You see? Everything that I read talks about the word. Now, let's see what this book talk about. This 366 devotion, bread for the soul, nourishing your faith daily. And I'm gonna let you look at the back. That's how it look. You could go and get that, for your studying. This book right here is a real good devotion. It gives you, interpretations, translations. Right, but we read May 25th, because it's the 25th of May. Right. You see that right there? But time and chance happen to them all. Ecclesiastes 9:11. Wow, really? It say in the fable of the Hari, and the Tortuasi, the Hari lost despite its speed. The Har lost despite its speed. Outcomes in life are unpredictable, and we need wisdom. In our enterprises, we expect an achievement to follow an endeavor. Such expectation would be irrational in a world of chance. Our adjustment of means to ends involves design and witness to an orderly creation. The general rule is not, however, an invariable rule. The relationship between resources, endeavor, and achievement do not operate like a fixed law of gravity. Luke 14:28-32. Often outcomes do not match the resources and effort put in. And saying time and chance happen to all the preachers looking at things as they appear under the sun. According to Hebrew, chance is not fortune, but that which occurs as or meet us. Time and chance affect our control, but not God's ultimate control. This was evident in the life of Christ under the sun. He controlled waves, illness, demons, and death, but God is not obliged to match our achievement in life to our resources and efforts. This is an unwelcome truth in the ungodly man, but it is full of consolation to the believer who confesses, my times are in the hand. So the sinners are lax about judgment because they imagine it will not overtake them soon. There is no such guarantee. The youth who thinks he has his whole life before him might hit a tree on his motorbike and suddenly his life under the sun is gone. To be unready is fatal. The unsuspecting fish or bird is suddenly caught. The end of the impediment is terrible. It is an evil net, and they are snared in an evil time like Sodom, Babylon, or Harod. Have confidence in heavenly wisdom. With little estimation is placed upon true wisdom even among believers. Yet it works, even if soon forgotten. It's better than strength. You will find true wisdom and quiet away from the clamor of this world. Be cautious about destroying good. One sinner can quickly sweep away much painstakingly established good in family, church, or state. Heavenly wisdom is pure, gentle, kindly, impartial, and sincere. James 3:17. Because but time and chance happen to them all. Ecclesiastes 9:11. That's a good verse right there. I like that. Ecclesiastes 9:11. That's a good one for, the shit that's been happening over the years with 9/11, with the emergency. Right. So that's 9/11. But to say this, we all had the ability, to be able to overcome this madness.